We'll take two more after this. So
right, good morning.
Little time. Oh.
My name is Tony Okwoju. My question is to the gentleman from the Central Bank. You know, nice talk about trying to tackle inflation. But, I mean, secondary school economics taught us that policies work ceteris paribus, all things being equal. So if things are not equal, do you then try to see what is happening with the policy you are implementing? For example, you talked about tackling inflation. You've been increasing interest rates over the months. The truth of the matter is that the people that really need the loans are manufacturers within the real sector. Very few individuals are taking huge loans like that. Now you are increasing interest rates, which is below inflation rate, so there's no incentive in any place, in the first place, for anybody to even keep money. So the only people that are suffering the increase in interest rate are the manufacturers, who then have to buy their raw materials, operate at a higher cost. Their goods become more expensive. The value of the naira continues to drop, creating further incentive for people to even save their money in forex. So my question is, are we just doing, by the grace of God, economic policy?
Thank you. We'll take one more lady, maybe in front here, because she's had her hand up for quite a bit. And then, yes, the microphone is going around. There's a mic coming to her. And we'll take those questions now because, quite frankly, unfortunately, our time is pretty much up. So we will probably, if you need to send an email, NESG will collate and direct further questions to the members of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. So my question is for Mr. Taiwo. My name is Adesu Akungoro. I run a raw capital management for a private equity fund investing in SMEs. Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, I'm Adesu Akungoro. I'm the founder of Aurora Capital. We're a private equity fund investing in SMEs. My question is for Mr. Taiwo. So we have a number of local manufacturers in our portfolio, and they are getting hit on all sides. I think the gentleman just mentioned 35% interest rates, power costs are increasing, they can't buy raw materials, exchange rate differentials. Is there any fiscal reform specifically for local manufacturers? Because local manufacturers are the ones that are providing essential goods and services to this economy. They're the ones that are creating jobs. We have a number of local manufacturers that are employing hundreds of people, thousands of people. They can't afford to operate, and a lot of them are actually shutting down operations. So is there something that we can do? Because we have a lot of multinationals that are leaving the country. We need these local manufacturers to continue to provide goods and services for us. So are there fiscal reforms in place specifically for local manufacturers that are adding value locally?
Thank you very much. The first question for my brother is, how do we create an ecosystem of trust for the tax system? I think even more broadly than that. So what we have been doing is, so why is there no trust? And this lack of transparency, how government is spending money in terms of public financial management, and then how government is communicating, even when they're doing what is beneficial to the people, communication is not like the strongest it could be. So some of that will then run with it and drive the narrative. So you're playing catch up. So we're working on all of that. And like I said earlier on, we have a national fiscal policy that sets the framework for how we build trust with spending, with transparency of everything from budget to spending to your economic plan, all the way from local government. Because what we're doing cuts across is not just federal government. Amaka, how are we going to get people to pay taxes who are evading, particularly the people who are the higher end of society? So this, you can imagine, is a big area of focus for us. People will pay tax once we decide that they have to pay. What we realize is that almost 90% of people who are paying taxes are guys who should not have been paying in the first place. So that's when we came up with data of 97% of the informal sector should be formally exempted from taxes. People didn't understand where we're coming from. They're not the guys to pay you taxes. They're trying to just survive. So the way we are developing the system is, first I'll give you a very broad highlight because of time. We will use a primary data identification, which is NIN for individuals. We'll use your RC number with CAC for businesses. We're developing one for government corporation doing business. Everything you do that is an economic activity will be linked to that data, that ID. Whether you open a bank account, whether you spend your payment card, whether you travel abroad, whether you register a vehicle, you import items, even your phone, right? So I don't want to scare anyone. So when you declare your income and you say you've earned 2 million naira in a year, the system will say, how did you earn 2 million and you spent 40 million? You have to come and reconcile for us. If the personal income tax that was declared last year, 1.53 trillion is the total personal income tax you collected. To gross it up, we declared income of about 15 trillion. In an economy where consumption alone is close to 200 trillion. So even when you disaggregate and you take out government consumption and credit for household, it's not adding up. We have VAT fiscalization we're going to implement as well. You must invoice everything you are doing using a system that is connected to the government. If you don't do it, when you buy 10 phones, we'll record it for you as your inventory in the government system. Because the person selling to you needs to come and claim deduction. So they will tell us, we will not wait for you to tell us, we get it from the third party. When you are selling, each time you invoice with government's invoice system, will reduce the amount that is left, but you will not know. You sell offline and come back and say your closing inventory is 2. We say, sir, your closing inventory is 6. Can you tell us what happened to the 4? So this system is proven everywhere. It has worked. We've been in Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa, and the rest of other places. So we will do that. We're giving you the assurance that people who need to pay will pay. Last question I have is from Adesua. I know people who are not happy again. Local manufacturers, what do we have exactly for them? So let me tell you that we prioritize manufacturers in our reforms. Maybe the other group we prioritize above them will be the vulnerable and SMEs. And in fact, many of the SMEs are also manufacturers. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria are part of our committee. The withholding tax regulation that was gazetted about 2 weeks ago, if you go through now, no taxes on manufacturers withholding tax anymore. And I was speaking to a CEO of one of the biggest manufacturers, and I said, oh, you know what, I can't wait for this to be implemented. Because you know what, when we withhold your income and give it to the government, and you're borrowing at 35%, that's your funding government at 35%. How can you grow? So we remove that. SMEs, don't worry about withholding tax. Producers that supply manufacturers, no withholding tax. We've done the same thing for VAT. We haven't completed it. So there's the one about your manufacturing input, and then there's the one that we have with National Assembly now for you to get full credit on your assets. You know, manufacturers are huge with assets. So you get all the credit back, which means your cost goes down. And then we have the company income tax rate I told you about, although not just for manufacturers alone, but clearly, our priority for targeting that reduction in CIT rate, for that to come down. Knowing very well that when you allow industries, manufacturers, to grow and thrive, the economy grows. And when the economy grows, remember our equation that we started with, you have more economic activities without doing almost anything. Naturally, your tax revenues would increase. Thank you.
Dr. Oyedele, I think there was one question or two questions here.
Well, coincidentally, the two questions are the same, just that one came as remark, while the other one came as a question. The same question. Thank you for the remarks, but at the same time, let me start. You know, my brother that has his own remarks in form of question started by secretaries paricles. All things being equal. That's because economics is fond of assumption. Although we know that all things cannot be equal. What we have done is to hold some constant so that we'll be able to achieve or display what we want to. All things can never be equal. Meanwhile, my sister said in form of remarks that I should tell Nigerians the truth. That it will take longer time to say that. In the same economics, you have short-run period and long-run period. Short-run period is defined as a period that is short enough for productive activity to do what? To take place and even complete. While the long run is, and some economists say even in that long run, we are all. So let me approach from this way. You see, the inflation we are talking about, when I be individual and corporate, that we should be patient. I try to make reference to the last MPC when most analysts were so optimistic that central bank was going to hold the rate. Some even thought maybe because in some other clients they were dropping, coming down. So, but in our home, I said we supposed to statistics, and it was not conducive at that time to do or to hold or come down. That's why I said I pleaded with Nigerians to be patient. The time is coming very soon when we speak to statistics and it recommends that or suggestive of we holding or coming. Of course, we do that. You know why I say we do that? Mr. Taiwo mentioned something, and that is the issue of trust. And if you've been listening to my governor, he spoke about trust. To all of us here, trust may not be a policy, but on its own is as important as policy. The current management of Central Bank of Nigeria came on board at the time the trust in the institution was at its lowest ebb. And the man came to the whole world to say, we are going to build trust. And when we build trust, we're going to earn the trust. Not only are we going to earn it, when we earn it, we're going to sustain it. And that has been the driving force. And by so doing, he has been pleading transparency to all members of staff and his management team. And that is why there's nothing we're doing Central Bank today that cannot be seen on website or cannot be spoken out about. The issue of inflation, once we have announced to the whole world that what we're doing now is contractionary stance and it's inflation targeting, we are pursuing it. But we're not saying it's going to be forever. As soon as we see, we are very sensitive and we're very considerate about that. Once we see the statistics suggest that we have to bring it down, of course, the manufacturing sector you have mentioned in your remarks or your question, of course, we start benefiting. And we know as they are also producing, they will sell to the final consumer based on their own cost of production. You and I are the one that we also carry the. We are very, very mindful of that. And I can assure you that the management of Central Bank is working towards ensuring that no Nigerian soul. We want to roll out policy that will impact positively on the lives of Nigerians. So that's exactly the context within which I say I appeal to Nigerians to be very patient with us.
Thank you, Dr. Adebiji, for your patient explanation. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I have a few more questions to ask, but we don't have time. So let me just ask Ineka. So this 40th anniversary of Citibank, this is the 30th Economic Summit. When we come back, what 2-3 things, policy actions would your clients or would your clients love to have been done by the Fiscal and Monetary Policy Authority so that Taiwo and Oyedele can take that home? and when we come back next year, we'll be asking them.
Thanks, Miri. First of all, I would say a consolidation of the various policy reforms. Quite a lot of reforms are on the table. So we'd like to see a consolidation of that. I would like the authorities to take on board the private sector feedback to streamline and fine-tune these policy provisions to avoid any unintended consequences while achieving the we will see the various government agencies walking the talk and avoiding any disconnects with the tone being set at the top. I think a few of that, some of that came out, some of the conversations. So I think those are the things I'd like to see. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, my distinguished panelists, and thank you for the robust conversations. And in summary, we understand some of the actions being taken by the Fiscal and Monetary Authority, yet we would like to see more predictability. We would like to see less price volatility. We also would like to see actions that will stabilize the system and lead to growth. And we would like ease of doing business, especially in terms of regulatory overlaps, to be sorted out so that we can create an environment where our members can bring investment to expand infrastructure, to expand machineries, equipment, etc. So thank you all for your insights. Thank you for your contributions. And to the audience, thank you for the remarks and the questions that are quite useful. And thank you for your attention. So I hand over to Fumi for any closing.